Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do, 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 do. Hello, everybody. My name is Rodgon. I'm an artist. I'm a designer. I'm an illustrator. I'm a cartoonist. And today I get to be your teacher. And I get to teach you guys some cool stuff about some cool things that are normally hard to do. In the most recent videos, we have tackled bodies, the muscles, the hip bones, the size of the head, the size of the legs, the size of the shoulders, the size of the eyes, foreshortening, posing, motion, volume, flow, and that was just yesterday. So, yeah, we've been talking a lot about animals too. So we've been talking a lot about how to construct animals, how to make them from very simple shapes, like ridiculously simple shapes, and how to actually pay attention to the points of a human that will help you learn how to draw an animal. We talked about the legs, we talked about the arms, we talked about movement, we talked about clothing, we talked about simplification of the body structure, and we also talked about how to create depth. Creating depth by putting something in front of something else and covering it. Otherwise, you get no depth. You can't create depth if you're not covering something else. It's one of those basic principles that is incredibly simple to learn, but most people neglect it, and then they don't know how to draw a finger coming forward or a leg coming forward because of that. So, what do you guys want to learn today? What would my students like to learn today? I normally go off whatever you guys want to learn, and then I just expand from that. I'm still getting a little bit over being sick, so please don't mind my little phlegm. It's already a little hard to breathe, so I might speak a little slower too if needed. But what do you guys want to learn today? Animals. No, yeah, we can talk about more animals. So what kind of animals do you want to learn? Do you want to learn how to draw like dogs? Do you want to learn how to draw wolves, alligators, dragons? What type of animal are we going to tackle? Owls. Owls are fun. Owls have really big eyes. Really, really big eyes. They have a really tiny beak compared to their eyes. And then they tend to have really big eyebrows, type of things. Their heads are also going to be relatively flatter in comparison to their bodies. And they're going to have feathers and wings that wrap around. So we're going to texturize our dude with little half circles. Little half moons or whatever you want to call this. Okay? If we do that, we're going to give it the texture of feathers. Why do people use spheres and rectangles for heads? No, I'll explain that. We can talk about heads. It's because people visualize things differently. So, the way that I simplify things takes into consideration anatomy, right? Most people simplify things in their own way of simplifying anatomy. So what we're going to be taking a look at is what are they doing with a box or a rectangle or a circle, and then being able to distinguish how you can make your own mapping system from that. I'm fine. I'm just having a hard time breathing. I'm having like chest pains and stuff like that. So I might have like some sort of like cold or flu or something. I don't know. Or maybe I'm dying. I don't know. We're all dying through entropy. It's okay. How can I simplify a gas mask, though? That's a random question. If I have time at the end, I'll answer that one for you. So we have an owl, we have little feetsies. Well, he probably would not show the feetsies, we'd just be on the branch. Right, we just have a branch. Branches are easy to draw. They're literally just little L's, and then you overlap lines in, and now you have something akin of something sticking out. You taper it. You taper it to different things, and then you branch it off to little words. Whee! Right? And you can draw little branches that look a little bit more natural. Now, to create the texture of wood, you either have to break in the wood grain, or you have to go around the element. You have to either go and wrap around it, or you have to go up and down. The lines for the texture should be incredibly thinner than the ones outside, to create the contrast of it looking like texture. And whenever they overlap inside, you go thick and then you thin it out so that it actually tapers into detail instead of overlapping a bunch of lines and making it look really weird. Little things like grass and foliage, it's just little zigzags. And leaves. The easiest thing that I know to draw leaves, especially on trees. I learned this from a drafting individual, a guy that was going into engineering. He said that just a circle, a box, and a triangle, repeated over and over in a nonsensical manner, it will give you the illusion of leaves. So if you just repeat those 3 patterns, you start getting the illusion of leaves. And kind of like with cross-hatching, the more denser you do those patterns, the more it's going to look like shadows and stuff. So circles, squares, and triangles. Kind of cool, huh? Don't keep them even. Let them be different. And for the outside, just do little curls. Whee! Uneven curls. And you're going to have trees and foliage that looks a lot better than just drawing straight lines like this. Yeah? Okay, so the next one, heads. Why do people draw heads as circles, and why do people draw heads as rectangles and stuff like that? Well, it's a simplification process, right? So if you started drawing in general and you started drawing with like happy faces, let's say that you learned to draw a happy face. You're like, yeah, I know how to draw a happy face. You are going to be more akin of learning how to draw from a sphere because you have already geared your brain to thinking that heads are round. So being able to draw from a circle will be a lot easier than not, because your brain is detecting that that's the visualization of what a face is supposed to be. If you, for example, look at faces and you think of a cube, because you see sides of the faces, right? You see the side of the head. You don't see the roundness. You see the facets that make the boxes flat. So when you do that, you divide this in a way that makes sense with a box, and then you have to adapt to all those little extra sections. Okay? Learning how to draw from a various amount of positions is really good. Some people divide the shape in the middle and then they go up, aka Mr. Loomis. One of the more popular methods that people do. Okay? And they carve out the shape from there. But the way that I am more inclined to do it is much more like this. Why? Because I can draw a box in any direction, make one side a circle, split the front, and I have myself a head. I have myself a skull immediately. I have my teeth line, I have my eye socket where I can put my eye. I can have my cheekbone already, so I don't have to guess where the cheekbone is. The side of the face, and when I want to create roundness, the same circle I drew here, it matches over here, so I can find my ear on the other side. So I have a box, this, whatever circle I draw here, it's the same circle I draw here. Remember, we're drawing a cube. Ta-da! If the ear goes here, guess what? The other ear goes here, and I have every mapping point I need to be able to draw my faces. The beauty of this method is that you can use it for animals too, because if you eliminate the chin, right? You don't draw a chin, you don't draw the little teardrop, but you draw that, you rotate that up forward. Now you have yourself something that you can use for animals. And it's very convenient to be able to do that for every animal in existence. Anything that has a skull. Things like octopus and stuff like that don't really have much of a skeletal system, that are cephalopods, something that's not necessarily through our evolution chain, will be a little harder. But most animals, consider that we normally tend to draw, have a rib cage of sorts. They have some hip bones of sorts, and they have a skull of sorts. Okay? Just much like a human, we have all these components. Most of the arms and stuff like that tend to have the same body part count too. Okay? Between our legs, the bottom of our feet, and our toes. When it comes down to an animal, you have your thigh, your calf, the bottom feet, and your toes. So this is this, and then the bottom of the foot is the bottom of the foot, and then this is this. You have hip bones, and you have two sides of things. So being able to draw things like animals, once you understand anatomy to a certain extent, it becomes a little bit easier. Okay. All right, let's see. Any other questions? How are you? I'm all right. A little sad still, but I'm doing good. But sad is just my normal state of mind. I have to work to be happy. That's the unfortunate side effect of having depressive states. Your normal is sad. Your out of the norm is sometimes being happy. And then it's just that. And that's how it goes. No, yeah, I've been sick. I've been sick lately, so just trying to get through it. How to draw ice cream. You draw a ball, and then you draw sprinkles. And then if it's on a cone, you draw a little circle, and you draw a dot. Connect them. And then ice cream melts, so ice cream would just melt over the cone. It wouldn't be even. You'd probably have some ice cream on the ground. And then the cone would have its own detail, right? Have it like a little wrapper or something. By just drawing a little circle inside of it, you can draw all those things. If you want texture to the cone, you could draw circle, 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 and then crisscross them to generate like a waffle cone. Make sure that the lines inside are a little thinner so that it looks like waffle cone texture instead of just lines. And then you can build it up with as many scoops as you want. How do you determine the length of the arm from the body? The arm from the body. So you have your rib cage, right? At the top of your rib cage, you're going to have this little bone called the collarbone that extends out. It's going to extend a little bit beyond your rib cage. A little bit, not very much, just a little bit. then your arm comes down as the outside of your arm. This is the outside of your arm, okay? You draw your hand and everything, and then you bring it back in and allow it to overlap into the main body. That overlap is your pectoral and your shoulder. So if you bring it out and you bring it back in, where this intersects, that is your pectoral muscle and your shoulder intersection. So if you notice, the further you draw it out, the more muscle you need to fill that space. The smaller you do, so you can do either way. You can do it gigantic or not. You can do one that's like this, right? And you'd have a bunch of muscle that you need to fill in. Right. Or you can do one that's really little and not have too much muscle to fill in. So you can determine any size you want for these muscles because there's no reason you have to choose a certain size, but it should be a consideration towards what you want to create that you choose that distance. So you have to accurately measure how much space do I need for my character to give the desired effect. Know what I mean? You have very nice English. Well, thank you. I am Mexican, by the way, so that is my second language. What about the length? The length goes as follows. Normal rib cages will let you have your first section of your arm, your elbow will meet the bottom of your rib cage. And then the second part of your arm isn't measured against your body because it's going to be flailing most of the time every other place. You measure it back against the same length of the first part. So it should be about the same, and then with your fist. If you're making a fist, it's going to be about the same. Right? Your fingers will extend beyond that. So and your fingers move. So never consider your fingers as a form of measurement. Your hand should never consider your fingers as a form of measurement because your fingers move and bend and twist. There's no reason why making this a form of measurement would be indicative with your hand, with your fingers at least. Okay? So you always measure it down to the fist, not the fingers, to this side. Okay? Not here. So when you measure that, this ends up being your forearm, your shoulder, and your bicep. 1, 2. Bring them back in for volume. Allow yourself to do little overlappy lines. And you have yourself an arm. How do you learn about these overlappy lines? You just learn to do this. And then you choose which side you want it to come out from. Okay? Which side do you want to be first? Do you want this side to be the overlappy part? It's going to give you a different hand than if you overlap it the other way, right? If you overlap it that other way, now you have a hand going in a different direction. So, knowing these little tiny tricks will help you understand hands much better than the other, many different ways you've probably been learning. Like this doesn't teach you that. When you learn like this, and you learn your hands and your stuff like a mannequin, this does, especially, oh my God, I hate it when people teach the rib cage like a box. God damn, I hate it. It's so stupid to do that because it's not boxy. Your rib cage is not boxy. It's literally this shape. Your muscles are boxy sometimes. Right? But this is supposed to be teaching you structure of the shapes, not the muscles, because the muscles are a variety of muscles. Muscles can grow, muscles can be big, muscles can be small. So if you have a base model, you should not be basing it off anything with structure like models. Like you should be basing it off your anatomy. So it can be as easy as just that. A circle with a circle and a circle. The collarbone, a straight line that connects back to the other circle. That will give you access to your arms. The outside of your arm comes first always, and then you draw inside for volume. That's how you get these overlappy shapes better. And then the size of your circle you drew here, if you draw it again underneath the hip bones, and you draw little wings, you have yourself your hip bones. You have some hip bones. You got some hip bones. And then you can pose your characters any way you want. What do you guys think? Easy peasy? You guys want another way to see it? Okay. You know how these two matched? These two were the same size, right? So now I'm just going to draw two circles. One of them with a straight line, one of them with little wings. And I'm going to connect them. That's my spine. That's my hip bones. That's my head. And all I need is a rib cage. Now you have the ability to draw a whole human in like 2 seconds with 2 circles. Oh, you want dynamic poses? Change the way those circles in that thing is. You can move them in space. You can move them, do a lot more by just learning how to connect those viewpoints in. Muscles are on top. So you can do all your superheroes and stuff like that. It's a very fun way to do it. Circle, circle, wings, line. And as you get better with anatomy, you'll learn to overlap shit. You'll learn to you'll learn to position in more subtle ways. But you already have pretty much everything needed to be able to draw human gestural drawings, even in public and stuff. That'll be a lot easier. And as you get better, you'll be able to move those two shapes in space, to be able to put them in anywhere. But you won't have to guess the size of the head. You won't have to guess where the arms go. The arms will always go here. Learning how the collarbone works is just a matter of learning that it bends like a V. Like if you have your arm up, you know how we've been drawing it straight like this, right? So this is going to work with your arms being up to here or down here. When you lift your arm beyond this point, the collarbone splits from the middle of the rib cage and it follows the arm. It will follow the arm along, even to the point of covering part of the face, if it comes down to it. Okay? So that collarbone is essentially the guide to the top of your arm. So this is the guide that you're looking for. That's the line that you're looking for, right? You're going to have this to the outside of your arm. From the middle of your rib cage to the outside of your arm is going to be a consistent line structure that happens. Because that's your collarbone and your shoulder. They're connected pretty much, and then your pectoral is also part of it. So that flow is going to help you a lot when you're posing your characters, especially let's say that you're doing a profile and you don't know where to put your arm. Well, you know that your arm is going to go around your rib cage to the front. You draw the outside first and then inside for volume. That flow helped you find that. Most of the time, your body in a profile, your arm, it'll either indicate an overlap this way to generate a back view, or you'll have your arm on the other side to generate a front view. That's going to be one of the easiest ways to rotate your characters. How does it just appear? What do you mean? I don't understand your question. Are you good at animation? Yeah. I'm actually fantastic at animation. I just don't like it. I'm great at most of the art fields I could do. If I went into 3D modeling, I'd be able to do 3D modeling because of this, right? I'd be able to model incredibly good 3D models, just mostly because I already have the visualization of that. So I'll be able to make things really, really easy from 3D models. I'd be able to model exceptionally well. But again, it's not something that I like, so I don't pursue it. I'd be a great sculptor. I'd be an amazing sculptor, mostly because I can see three-dimensional shapes, right? I already know how to squish something and make it come out. I can make something by just pulling things out of it, right? I have the ability and the knowledge to be able to build things in many different ways through volume. So things like sculpting would be easy, but again, it's not something that I like. Make it stick out. You need to keep your mind in the normal place, dude. I want to become an animator, but I can't draw bodies for the life of me. Yeah, this isn't the place for that, guys. And any disruption to the class will be removed swiftly. So please don't. Deal? Somebody yesterday got blocked because of being a nuisance. So, let's see. What other questions do you guys have? Any other questions? Anything that might be complicated about this? You could say they got art blocked. That's funny, dude. That was a good one. That's a good one. How do you draw a head? A head can be as easy as drawing a box, split it in two, draw a little hourglass and a circle. That's going to be your eye sockets, your cheekbones, your nose canal, where your nose goes, your eye space, and if you follow that triangle down as a teardrop, you get yourself your face. If you want depth, you match a box in a circle, right? You draw a little circle at the side of that box and you have depth. That's where you put your ear. Now, if you make that circle bigger and that box smaller, let's say we cut it in half, guess what happens? You have a profile view. Yay, now you know how to draw heads in all views. You're welcome. Expressive faces. Expressive faces are going to be involved with your eye socket. Well, not your eye socket, your eyebrows and your eye. The eye and the eyebrow has a muscle. It's a big muscular muscle that goes around it. Whenever that presses down, aka your eyebrow goes down, it's going to cover a little bit of your eye. But it's not just the hair, it's not just the shape of the eyebrow that covers it, it's the actual muscle around the eyebrow. Okay, and this is where most people get it wrong. They don't know how to handle that section. Eyebrow muscle, eyebrow. Okay? Your eye is a little bit below that. The brow muscle is what covers the eye, what pushes down on the eye. It's not the actual eyebrow, it's the whole muscle thing. So as you move down that big muscle and the eye stays in the same place because the eye doesn't move, maybe the eyelid happens, there's an eyelid maybe. but there's no movement of the eye. So the eyelid gets pushed down. The eyelid creates tension points on this side because of these lines, right? And then part of the eye gets covered. Then a bunch of tension happens in the middle because all these muscles are pressing against each other. And then your nose also has muscles right here that are pressing either up or down. So you get a bunch of tension happening in the middle section. So to facilitate that, normally you go and you do things like this. Right? You grate all the tension to the middle, add a little shadow, and then you have yourself that same structure of frustration that you would with all those little indications, but without having to do all that thinking. So, very heavy expressions, especially anger, require you to know all those steps, and that's why some people don't know how to draw the lines that are coming out of here. Right? They just draw the eyebrow, and then they draw their eye. And yeah, you'll generate that same look, but when you learn a little bit more about how your body works, you'll have a little bit of space, then you'll have your eyelid, and then you'll have your eyelash line, and then you'll have the bottom of your eyes into the tear ducts, and you'll start learning how to overlap your shapes a little bit. The thickness and the thinness of the lines you choose is going to be indicative. Thick line gives me, and a thin line give me contrast. If I do a thick and a thin line, I can draw an eye in two lines. Right? I don't have to do much. If I want to add more detail, I overlap that top line a little bit and I have a tear duct. I can generate another layer for my eyelids, eyelashes, everything. It doesn't have to stay simple. But the concept itself of a thick line that can be accentuated in any way you want later on. A thin line to generate contrast, and two circles or whatever shapes you want for the eyeballs is going to be a very easy way to generalize eyes to the point where you're not going to have to guess how to make an appealing eye. Thick and thin lines save lives. Okay? Thick and thin line. One thick, one thin. That's all you really need for an eye. The overlap that happens allows you for stylization really easy. And knowing that it's a circle and just two curvy lines going around it for the general shape of the eye will make it easy to sketch into drawings. So you go head, midline, circle, circle, curvy line, curvy line, curvy line, curvy line. Make one thicker. You have myself eyes. Okay? You don't have to think about many things. Then the nose kind of blocks a little bit of one eye sometimes. And then that triangle that you draw in the middle for the nose goes to the sides for my chin and for my mouth. Everything gets segmented out if you know what to follow. If you pay attention to the next thing to follow, then you're going to be able to draw it. The eyes, again, if you have your eyebrow and you allow it to go around, it's going to connect to the outside of your eye. The natural flow that happens will normally do that for your eye. This goes into the inside of your nose. This becomes the wall of your nose, the one that goes up. Then you go this way and then you go down again. Right? And if you already find this line, guess what? You just do that same sort of motion and you have access to the other eye. Flow is going to be one of those things that don't get taught by many people. Okay? Flow of one point, it's kind of like a connect the dots type of thing. Right? If you learn how to connect the dots, things don't become really hard anymore. Cheekbones, stuff like that, they all have a connecting point. Everything has a connecting point. And if you understand those connecting points, it becomes really easy. It's really fun to start looking at people and just being like, let me see where this connects with you. It's going to come up with a lot of trial and error, but eventually you will be able to draw as good as me or even better in time because you are getting all these tips, right? By the time you guys get to the amount of time that I have been doing these, you will be 10 times better than I will ever get to. And that's the point. That's the goal. The goal is to train the next generation of people that are really hungry for growth so that when they get to a point where they have surpassed anything I have taught them, they can in part teach the next generation, and someone will take the mantle of Rodgon. Somebody will take the mantle when I'm gone, and somebody will just take over and then teach that generation. And then I hope that it just keeps on going. Kind of like the title of Sensei. I want the title of Rodgon to just mean person that gives knowledge freely. I would love for that to be like what like happens. Like, oh, have you seen that new Rodgon guy? Oh, no, the guy from like that teaches music or the guy that teaches art? I don't know. It would be so cool to just start a baby movement of people that will help others without expecting anything, you know? Because I think that's needed. I think that's much needed. I think that's very much needed. And somebody that actually wants to do it, not just somebody that'll do it because of an obligation, right? Like teachers that do things out of obligation are shitty teachers. People that teach just like because they have to, they fucking suck at teaching. And we've all had those teachers, right? They're the teachers that just go to collect a paycheck and they're done and they're fucking tired and they don't want to deal with students' questions. They don't want to deal with shit. They don't want to be questioned. They just want you to do the thing that they're taught to do and then just done. I hate those types of teachers. They drive me absolutely insane, and I believe that they do a lot more harm than they will ever do good. Okay? A person that does not take their job seriously, no matter what type of job it is never going to be a good person contributing to that field. And just knowing that makes me feel better about what I do. Right? Because I sit here every day trying to help as many people as I can. And when somebody tries to distract me, like yesterday, some jerky little kid, I'm like, oh, now I'm going to have some fun. Now I get to be a jerk. Now I get to unleash the wrath that I have accumulated over years just because someone annoys me. Face proportions are very important. I started a painting. I feel stuck due to that. Sorry about that. 1, 2, 3. So proportions in the face can normally be summed about in a third if you break it down like that. Your eye socket and your cheekbone is going to be about 1/3 of your face. Your nose canal is going to be a little bigger than half of that. And then the rest is going to be like a little hourglass. Your temples are going to come in from the side of your eye socket and then going to round out the rest of your head. Your nose canal is going to give access to your chin, and this is your teeth. Then from here, your cheekbone connects to your jaw. Not to your jaw, to your upper teeth. And then right here, this is where you draw your jaw inside. This is a little bit behind everything else. The neck comes from where that box ended, not inside. I don't know whoever told human beings that their necks are always inside of their heads. Sometimes they are, but most of the time, the head and the neck are very much similar to each other in size. So all you have to do is draw a little overlappy line and you have access to a head and a neck. It's incredibly simple. And most people just Like, this is what they struggle with. It's not the whole concept of doing this. That's easy. They struggle with that. They struggle with knowing how to draw a head, looking up and stuff like that. It's literally just a little overlappy line for a neck. The whole concept of stylizing it the way that you guys want is the thing that's messing you guys up the most. Because when you start drawing really big heads in little tiny necks, you don't know how to connect them. If you start like this and you don't know how a neck works, yes, you're going to always draw like a little stick or like a little tapered line, and you're not going to know how to connect it to your body. It's a very simple concept. You guys want to know it in like 2 seconds? I'm going to teach you the concept of the neck by just teaching you how to draw a spine. Yeah? Yeah, I'm going to teach you how to... Okay. Let's talk about the spine. The spine is this big bone that happens to be in the back of your body, right? It's the one that connects your head, connects your hip bones, and it connects your rib cage. Connects everything together, but nobody draws it. It's ridiculous how nobody ever pays attention to that. So, if you draw, let's start with a straight line, okay? A straight line, just a straight line. This line is going to have 3 big major bumpies coming up from there. Nothing's going to happen back. This is literally the base. Everything's going to go to the front because that's what the spine is. It's the bone in the back of our bodies that literally has no muscle or anything growing on it, and it's in the back of our bodies. So we have the biggest one, which is our rib cage, that's coming before in front. We have our hip bones also in front. Our spine is in the back of our body. Therefore, our hip bones are in front of that. And what else is in front of it? Our head. Any volume we choose for the head. Okay? If this becomes an egg, you get the curvature for the back of the rib cage. Cool? Then taper, and then your legs and stuff like that come from there. Your arms come from a little circle in the back, and that's going to be a little closer to the back than the front. Why? Because you need your muscles in the front. Your muscles, like your pectorals and stuff like that, come forward. Your stomach, your crotch, all that stuff comes in front. Essentially, you're drawing your skeletal system, right? You're only drawing your skeletal system. You're not drawing anything else with this. You're only drawing your skeletal system, and then you have to add your muscles on top of that. You have to be like, okay, the muscles come forward from the rib cage, so most of the muscles are going to come forward in space. Okay? And that's how you learn to build that system like that. It starts becoming a little easier. Oh, and the spine. Oh, wait, no, we totally missed the whole lesson. The spine is here. The head is right here, right? And your rib cage is right here. So depending on how thick you want your neck to be, it can be the size of your head, like a little cylinder, right? Or you can taper it, but taper it from the back. This never moves. So I get to choose how big my neck is based on the back of my body. Not the front, the back. This doesn't move. I determine the width from there. Let's do another one over here. Circle, spine, and then the circle for the rib cage. Okay? If you draw a little circle the same size as this, it becomes a little cylinder. Then you have something goes around your head. You can draw up from there to draw your jaw, and then taper this to come up with your neck. So all you really need is a circle, circle, circle. And you have yourself access to drawing a really cool head with depth and your neck in the right place. Hello! How's it going, Lou? If you guys do not know, Mr. Lou right here, Lou Tunes, is launching his own strip, his own comic strip. And he is one of my apprentices. So I think that you guys should go check him out because it's actually really funny. And he's been doing a lot of good work on it. So I highly, highly recommend you guys to check it out. His humor is hilarious. And his drawings are getting really good. We support other people in our groups. You know what I mean? This is a community much more than just a bunch of people getting together to learn from me. So, also, anytime that you guys tag me on Instagram, if you tag me on Instagram, I share your work with everybody that I have. And that's like 300,000 people. So, and if you want to have your artwork shown, tag me in a story on Instagram and allow me to share a little bit of your hard-earned work with a proper audience that will have a little bit more eyesight on it. How do you figure out the proportions of body? We already talked about that. Can you do a large version? A large version of what? Because we ran out of space already. We are essentially done with our lesson for today, unfortunately. But let's recap what we have learned today. Yeah? Today's lesson started with animals. You guys wanted to learn a little bit about how to draw animals, and you guys decided that you guys wanted to know how to draw an owl. So we drew an owl really quickly, and I taught you guys the basic shape of a football field for a football for the head, big eyes, little tiny beak, and the texture of fur or feathers can be done by simply drawing little tiny U's that interact with each other. With that, you can make anything look like it has feathers. So all you got to do is draw a beak and then draw those little lines, and you have yourself a little simple, really simple simplification of a bird. Yeah. Then we moved on to teaching people how to draw the face from a circle, from a box, and how other people use those same shapes, but maybe a little bit more complicated to be able to determine how to draw things. I personally like the whole box and the circle thing because it just keeps my brain simplified enough to be able to draw things like this in any angle I want without having to worry about the curve, the stupid curve that like he tries to implement as the first couple steps is the one thing that annoyed the shit out of me. When I realized it's just the middle of the ear to the outside of the chin. Once you find that, it's here to here to here. Cool. Mathematical equation. Done. So it's not hard once you understand the mapping points where it hits. The whole concept of this wrapping around the other way was always complicated because I didn't know how to do it from the other side. Right? But if I already know I have my circle, I have the midpoint right there, and it connects here, it's just the curvature that goes outside and the cheekbone. It's the cheekbone that goes out and in. It's a very interesting little dynamic, right? But it only works if you understand how to map the thing right. And this, on the Mr. Loomis method, was one of the things that was the hardest things for me to understand. Therefore, I gave up on it really, really quickly because drawing the same thing over and over without any improvement tends to just cement in bad habits instead of actually helping you grow. And then we talked about the overlappy shapes that make up the hand, and then you can actually change the direction of the hand simply by changing little overlappy shapes, how we measure the arm and the sections of the arm, and how we measure it to a fist, not to the finger sections, because then we get a bunch little short arms. Then we talked about the anatomy of animals versus the anatomy of humans and how they correlate and which part goes to where and how it can be related. Taught you guys how to use the shoulders to find nice little simple flow of lines so you can tell the direction of your body parts, be either from the back or the front by just literally overlapping it the opposite way. We taught you guys how to draw a human skull in both the front view and the side view with a simple box and a circle. And we talked a little bit about eye expressions, teaching you guys a little bit of how the interaction of your eyebrow with your brow muscle works and how you can eventually learn to draw really cool, angry, dynamic poses just by understanding those points a little better. Then we talked about the flow of the eyebrows into the eyes and the nose and how you can learn that little pattern. It's actually really simple. It just goes like this. It literally goes like a figure 9, goes around, and then that's where your eye goes. If you learn that little simple motion, you will have the nose bridge into every shape of eye that you will ever want. Okay, this one will be on YouTube later. This one, the one yesterday, I didn't upload it because I didn't want to have myself like pretty much screaming at that little kid. I didn't want to have like mean Rod like on YouTube. And honestly, I don't like being that person, but it is necessary sometimes to just like show that you are serious about what you're trying to teach and you don't want any disruptions, because otherwise the trolls take over. Right? It's very easy for us to become a channel where people just shoot the bullshit. They go, draw me. And then if they don't, they'll start trolling, reporting, and stuff like that. So I'm not that person, and I don't do that. So I'm not going to be kind of held hostage to a certain extent by people that do make you feel like you're not doing what you're supposed to just because you're not catering to their little petty needs. Yeah? So I love you all. You guys have an absolutely wonderful day. May your week start off with a great big smile, a smack on the butt, and a new raise at work or a bonus for your freelance work. Yeah, that would be a great way to start. You guys have an awesome time. Love you all, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.